Hey everybody, my name is Hahn from PastorJHahn.com. Have you ever had to give a public speech? Maybe you were asked to speak publicly at school as a part of a speech class in front of your students and peers. Or maybe you were asked to speak by a boss at work in front of a group of coworkers. Maybe you were asked by a friend to speak publicly in front of a large group at a part of a social gathering or maybe an organization that you're a part of. Whatever the case may be, many people struggle with public speaking and are afraid of it. In fact, it's been commonly stated that public speaking is something that people fear more than death itself. Well, I don't believe that it has to be that way. In fact, I believe that you can actually enjoy public speaking. And over the past 10 years, I've had an opportunity to speak publicly in front of many groups, some large, some small. But in each time I've been able to speak publicly, I've learned how to do so in a way that has helped me to enjoy the process. And to do so, I've learned a particular technique that I want to share with you today. It's called the SCORE technique. And this is a technique that can help you whether you're writing a lesson or developing a sermon, whether you're developing a blog post or a book, or you've been asked to speak publicly. In any form of communication, this technique will help you because it's going to give to you a way in which you can develop a message that is crystal clear, super focused, a laser-like focus upon the subject at hand so that your message can be delivered in such a way that you do so with clarity and confidence, and you can even enjoy the process. But before we get started, I want to first remind you of this particular YouTube channel. This is PastorJHahn, and it's a channel dedicated to examining and studying God's Word as well as learning important techniques that will help us to grow and proclaim God's words to others. And so if you're interested in learning about God's Word or in learning how to better proclaim God's words to other people, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel today so that you don't miss a single video. Well, let's go ahead and get started with this particular subject or topic. Today we want to talk about how it is that we can develop a speech. And we're going to learn a topic, or a technique I should say, called the SCORE technique. And the word SCORE is actually an acronym. It's an acronym that will give us several different steps that will help us to walk through a presentation process, or a process that will help us to develop the message that we need to convey to a particular audience. It's called the SCORE technique, and it's an acronym, S-C-O-R-R-E. The letter S stands for subject, the letter C stands for central theme, the letter O stands for objective statement, the letter R stands for reasons, the next letter R stands for rationale, and the final letter E stands for evaluation. SCORE, S-C-O-R-R-E. So if you can remember that, you can remember all the steps that are necessary in order to develop a message that's going to help you speak clearly and precisely and with a laser-like focus to the people that you're speaking to. So let's walk through each of these steps and think about it in a particular way. I want you to imagine that you've been asked to give a speech on your favorite hobby. And maybe you're like me. Maybe you love going to the beach. It's summertime, and when you think about the summer, you think about going to the beach and spending time in the ocean. And it could be that as a part of going to the ocean, one of the things that you enjoy doing is scuba diving. And so you enjoy floating above the water or diving down deep and seeing the different fish and plant life that are available underneath the surface of the ocean. And so I want you to imagine for just a moment that you've been asked to give a speech on the topic of scuba diving. So let's use this technique, the SCORE technique, to help us develop a speech that we can use. So let's think through this. The letter S stands for subject. And so we would want to think about what our subject is. Well, in this case, it's pretty simple. Our subject is scuba diving. And so this is the general subject or topic that we're going to be talking about. And so as you think about the speech that you're being asked to give, you want to start with a general topic. What is it that you're being asked to present? The letter C then stands for central theme. This is how you begin to break down that subject. When we talk about scuba diving, there could be a lot of different things that we want to talk about. We could talk about the skills of scuba diving. We could talk about the steps that a person needs to take in order to scuba dive. We could talk about reasons for why a person should go and scuba dive. All of these are different ways of presenting different types of messages, but we would want to choose one and to select one that is most appropriate to the audience and to what we're trying to convey. So that's what the letter C stands for. That's our central theme. So let's imagine in this particular case that we want to teach people how to scuba dive. The letter O then stands for objective statement. This is where we write a statement, or sometimes it's called the ugly statement, which becomes the core or the focus of the particular message that we're trying to give. So there are two different types of statements that we can write. One is a persuasive statement, and the second is an enabling statement. And these two different types have two different forms. So if we were going to give a persuasive speech, we would want to talk about the reasons for why you would want to go scuba diving. So our basic form for that particular speech would be, every person should scuba dive because of 4 reasons, or 5 reasons, or 3 reasons. But it would take that basic form. Every blank should blank because of blank reasons. So every person should scuba dive because of 4 reasons or 5 reasons. And so that would become a persuasive speech. We're trying to persuade people to go and to scuba dive. Or the second type would be an enabling speech. This is a speech where we're trying to help people to understand that they can scuba dive. So this would take a different form. It would take this form. Every blank can blank by blank steps, we might say. So every person can scuba dive by taking 3 steps, or 4 steps, or 5 steps. And so this becomes very, very important. We now are taking a very different approach, and we're trying to encourage people to go and scuba dive, and we're helping them to do so by explaining to them, giving to them information that will help them and enable them to go and to do that on their own. This is a very different type of speech. But there are 2 basic types of speech. One is persuasive, the second is enabling. And so we would want to think about within our scuba diving speech which type we want to go with, and then we would build our message based upon whether it's a persuasive speech or an enabling speech. The next letter R stands for reasons. Here we want to think about the reasons or the parts of the speech itself. So every speech is broken up into a series of components. If we're going to be giving a persuasive speech where we say that every person should scuba dive, it's going to be because of a certain number of reasons. Reasons becomes the key word for why we would want to do that, why we would want to scuba dive. But if we're going to give an enabling speech, then we could have all kinds of different keywords. So we could develop a speech that says every person can scuba dive by taking 3 steps or 5 steps, the keyword being steps. If we were developing a biblical lesson, we could say every person can learn how to pray by taking 4 steps, or by learning 3 truths, or by understanding 5 principles. And so that word principles or truths or steps becomes a key word that we use to basically build our entire speech. And so every different part of this speech needs to be somehow tied to whatever our keyword is that we've chosen. And in the book, Ken Davis gives about 60 different keywords. And those keywords are very, very significant because these become the reasons or the parts of the speech and help you to really tie everything together. The next letter R stands for rationale. And it's here we continue to think about the speech and the reasons for and the rationale behind why we are giving the speech that we are. And finally, the letter E stands for evaluation. And here we think about at the end of our speech what we did right and what we did wrong. And so after we have prepared our speech and delivered our speech, we then want to think about the things that we did well and the things that we could improve upon. And every speech ought to really be evaluated. And that's true whether you're speaking to a small group or a large group, whether you're speaking to a group at school or at work or at church, whether you're speaking to someone and trying to sell a product, or you're trying to convey information about a particular service that you offer. Whatever the case may be, this is an evaluation process that all of us needs to go through. And so this is the basic format for this particular technique, the SCORE technique. SCORRE, subject, central theme, objective statement, reason, rationale, evaluation. If you can put those steps to memory and begins to use them as you build any form of communication, you will find that your speeches, your lessons, your blog posts, and even a book can become much more precise. You can use the SCORE technique to help you develop a single chapter within a book, or to develop an entire book. I've used it to write a particular sermon, but I've also used it to write entire sermon series, or to write a series of series that are going to be used throughout an entire year. And so it can be used at various levels. But the basic idea is that we want to develop communication that is crystal clear. And we want to be able to understand and to know exactly what we're trying to say when we stand and deliver. And when we do that, we will have clarity and confidence, and we will know that our message will be powerful and effective. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. That's the goal. That's the bullseye that we're trying to aim for. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you will use this technique. If you do so, I would encourage you to share with me any comments about this technique as you learn how to use it in the comments section below. I'll also provide links below to this particular book, and I would encourage you to read it. It's filled with lots of additional information that will help you as you develop and use this technique. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.